Today we're going to be talking about non-resident income taxes. So basically, if you purchase a property in Spain, this is a tax that you have to pay on an annual basis. And today I'm joined with my colleagues Isabel and Patricia. And what's very important to bear in mind is that if you become a resident, which means you spend more than 6 months a year in Spain in a calendar year, the tax year in Spain is a calendar year, so from the 1st of January to the 31st of December. If you become a resident, you don't have to submit the non-residence income tax return. But if you are here for less than 6 months a year, or you're not a resident, that's when you do have to pay the non-residence income tax. So Isabel, when do I have to submit this tax return?
Well, it really depends on whether you own a holiday home here just for your family and friends, or whether you are renting it for rental purposes. So if it's a holiday home, the annual income tax return, which is Modelo 210-210, must be submitted every year from 1st January until 31st December for the former year. So basically, by the end of this year, you're going to be declaring 2019 and so on. If the property was bought in the middle of the year, for example, it was completed, the purchase in June 2019, there is a duty to submit the tax return for the proportional time you have owned the property. If the property you own is rented, then the tax form Modelo 210 must be submitted on quarterly basis, and that is regardless you rent it some time of the year and you use it on as a holiday home the other part of the year. You have to do it on quarterly basis, and the calculation will be proportional.
Okay. So basically now, Patricia, so you've bought a property. So let's say someone bought it last year, and this is the first year that they've got to submit their non-residence income tax return. How is that tax calculated?
Well, as Isabel has explained, it depends on the use of the property. So there is a deemed income tax for non-rented property. This is income tax on the imaginary rental income that you have on the property, and it is calculated in reference to the rateable value, valor catastral, the cadastral value of the property. And for the tax year 2019, the tax rate for non-residents, it's 19% for EU residents, Norway and Iceland. And it is at 24% for residents of other countries. The taxable amount is in general 1.1% of the rateable value of your property, of this cadastral value. This is depending on when was the last time that the cadastral value was updated. If it was updated less than 10 years ago, then it's 1.1. If it's more than 10 years, then it's at 2%. So one example. If your property has a rateable value, a cadastral value of 100,000 euros, then the annual tax payable for the tax 2019 is 209 euros for EU citizens and citizens from Norway and Iceland. And it will be 264 euros for other countries.
Okay, thanks for that. And so, how does the situation change if I rent the property out? So Isabel touched on a quarterly return. Do I have to submit quarterly returns then?
Exactly. If your property is rented out, you are required to make a tax declaration for each quarter in which you have had rental income. For tax year 2019 and 2020, the tax rate it's 19% for residents on the EU, Norway and Iceland. And all the rental expenses, including, for example, mortgage interest, can be deducted for tax purposes. However, for residents of other countries, the tax rate is 24%. But the rental income, it's full taxable, and there is no deductions applicable in this case.
Okay, so that sounds a little bit unfair. For basically, Europeans have a lower rate compared to non-Europeans. Isabel, what information do I need to supply in order to prepare these annual non-resident income tax returns?
So the information that we need in order to prepare the tax returns would be the copy of the sale purchase title deed, the deed that was signed on completion date for the purchase of the property, and also the copy of the council tax IBI bill for the year we are dealing the tax for. So we need to get the copy of the IBI bill in order to check what is the rateable value of the property, valor catastral, for the said year. That's basically what we need.
Okay, and Patricia mentioned some costs that can be deducted. For example, if I've got a property on a community of owners, an apartment or a townhouse, can I deduct the community costs? And what other costs can I deduct?
Well, the costs can be deducted if you are renting the property. So if you are using it as a holiday home for you and for your friends, the costs are not deductible. Now, if you're renting the property, some costs can be deducted, especially those which are related to the property. For example, the community fee, the IBI, the mortgage fee, mortgage cost that you may be paying if you have a mortgage loan, and management company fees if you have a management company dealing with it, or an accountant, it would be then the accountant cost. Now, just bear in mind that these costs are deductible only if you are residents in a European Union country. Otherwise, it would be the gross income that you would have to declare.
Okay, and what's very important for people to bear in mind is that, so if you generate rental income in Spain, then you've got to pay tax in Spain on that income, and then you also may have to declare that income in your home country and pay any additional tax there. So, Patricia, do I need to be registered for tax in order to submit these annual returns?
Yes, property owners do need to obtain the Spanish tax number, known as NIF. So when you purchase your property, you will have been assigned a foreigner's ID number, NIE, but the NIF will be the same number, but it's necessary to register the NIE into the tax office. So in the majority of cases, the property owners will already have the NI registered for tax purposes. However, if they bought the property years ago, there is a possibility that it's not the case. Anyway, we can carry out an online check with the Spanish tax office database to verify that the NIs, the NIEs, are already registered.
I mean, that's something that we do internally at MyLawyerInSpain. So basically, when we act for clients, we apply for the NIs and we automatically register them with the Spanish tax office. But what Patricia's mentioned, that in addition to your NIE, we would have to apply for and obtain an NIF for you. Okay, so Isabel, in the case of joint ownership, do people have to submit individual returns, or can they submit one return?
The tax returns are individual, so if it's a property which is jointly owned, each owner will have an individual tax return, and therefore the tax amount will be calculated proportionally.
Okay. So I've just realised, Patricia, that I forgot, heaven forbid, I forgot to submit my tax return, my non-residence income tax for last year. What can I do, and what are the repercussions?
Well, basically what you can do is submit it now. So it will be a late submission, and the repercussion, it will be a penalty. If during the first 3 months of delay, the penalty is a 5% charge on top of the amount that you will have to pay. And this percentage, it's increasing if your tax return is delayed more than 3 months. So the sooner the better.
The sooner the better, okay. And Isabel, so if I'm selling my Spanish property, and I've heard that if I haven't paid the non-residence income tax, that the tax office can claim it when I maybe seek to declare the capital gains tax if I've made a gain or a loss on the property. Is that right?
Well, yes, that's correct. Well, in fact, the tax office is entitled to claim that for the last 4 years, because it is tax liability 4 years in Spain. So anytime they could be looking at the former 4 years, and if they find out that someone has not paid the taxes, then they could be claiming for that. So not necessarily if you're selling the property, but anytime. That's the tax office capacity. Now, what happens when you sell a property is that if you're not tax resident in Spain, it is compulsory that the buyer returns to you a 3% of the sale price and pays that to the tax office as a payment into account of the capital gain tax. And if you are not getting a gain, for example, or your gain, the capital gain tax is lower than this 3%, you will want to apply for the refund to the tax office. And it is really at that point that the tax office will normally check what records they have from you. And if they have noticed that they do not have any records at all, because you have not submitted a tax, never ever, they will then claim that you arranged the payment for the last 4 years. Either get them paid and they will therefore refund to you, or you can also apply for the compensation. So say that they have to refund you the 3% in full because there's no gain. They can compensate and deduct whatever you were supposed to pay plus any interest and surcharge that may apply, and return you the refund to you the balance. But yes, that's quite correct, and therefore it is something to take into account by vendors, and well, they can of course regularize the tax situation anytime.
Yeah, and just so people are aware that basically the Spanish tax office can go back 4 years. So you've really got to submit your tax returns on an annual basis. But if you haven't, then the tax office can go back 4 calendar years. So Patricia, if I've inherited a property, do I still have to pay the non-residence income tax? And when would I start to have to pay that from?
Yes, you have to pay the non-resident income tax because all non-residents in Spain with Spanish property are liable for this tax. So it doesn't matter if you have bought the property or if you have inherited the property. And the rights that you have over the property, if this is inherited, start at the date of death of the person from you have inherited the property. So that will be the first year that you will have to submit your non-resident income tax return.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, well, I think we've explored the non-resident income tax position and discussed quite a lot about when it's payable, how it's calculated. We'll now basically paste this on our social media channels, and if anyone wants to contact us to discuss their non-residence income tax, they can do so by sending us an email to inquiries@MyLawyerInSpain.com, and we'd be happy to assist you with the annual tax returns and also apply for rebate if you've sold your Spanish property. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you for other YouTube programs that we may make about Spanish legal news. And if you visit our channel, you'll see that there are other topics that we've covered previously. So thank you for joining us, and forward to seeing you again soon.